Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel, So Fast I Young. Today I am going to do a really quick little video that's a tutorial on how to do a chain stitch and what that is useful for. It's a hand sewing technique. You can use it for belt loops, you can use it to swing tack, you'll sometimes hear it called swing tack too. You can use it to make belt loops, you can use it to tack together two layers of a garment. So I did try to see if I had anything that had one in it, and I oddly don't, but like if you had a skirt or a jacket with a lining that was open at the bottom, like most often I've or a dress, you could sometimes they'll be tacked together at seams with like a chain stitch that's maybe like an inch or two long, somewhere in there. It'll be like a chain of thread that holds the two together and kind of keeps them moving together. If you've ever crocheted, it is also basically how you start a crochet. I'm going to show you a couple places where it's used first. So this is a dress that the skirt, okay, unfortunately none of my clothing actually has one. So but this skirt has a lining layer, right? And oftentimes at a seam on a dress that has a lining layer, you would find a little swing tack, as they call it, or chain stitch, that would maybe link these two together about this far apart, just to give it some movement, but also help keep the layers together and moving together. It's usually found on nicer garments. This was just like a dress from Penny's, so it didn't have one, and actually none of my skirts that have linings did either. I was surprised. I was like, oh, huh, maybe I should add some chain stitches to some of these. Even I have a very nice trench coat that didn't have a chain stitch though. It had like ribbon that was connecting the lining to the outer shell. So I was like, oh, that doesn't work either. And the other place that you will often find a chain stitch is right here to make a belt loop. Sometimes they will be a belt loop like this, where it comes and sort of meets right back at itself. And sometimes you will find them where they will start at one place and go all the way down, like chain, and then connect at a lower point. Other ways that I've used chain stitches, oh, they make bustle points out of them in bridal. So you attach buttons and then you make loops out of the chain stitch to attach a button to for a bustle loop. But yeah, so I'm going to go over some quick ways how to do that and like the basics of it. I thought I'd do a really quick large scale demonstration basically. So I've just got some cording here, some rope, and if you've ever done a daisy chain for crochet or whatever, it's basically the same thing, except you're going to start by tying or sewing one end of this into a piece of fabric. And then you're going to use your loops to do your daisy chain. So it's just like a repeated slip knot. So you're gonna actually literally do this with your thread and make your daisy chain. And then once you get it to the long enough point, you'll pull this through and then you'll sew this end into the fabric at the other end that you want it. So I hope that makes sense. So it's like slip knots. 1 slip knot, 2 slip knot, 3 slip knot. And this is literally like with the needle and thread, this is the movement that I'm going to do. I'm going to go pick up my thread and pull it through and make a little slip loop. And then when I get to the end, I pull it all the way through. We're good, okay? So large scale version of daisy chain. And now we will cut to me doing it on a piece of fabric. So this is my Halloween dress from a couple of years ago, and I never put belt loops on this to guide my belt, but I'm going to because I want some nice belt loops. So here's my side seam right here. Here's my waist seam, side seam, okay. And I'm going to mark where I want the belt to sit. So I want a belt loop that comes from here and goes to about here with a little bit of wiggle room. All right. Now, when you're doing belt loops and stuff, you might want to consider couple of different things. I can do either black or orange thread. I'm going to do orange thread because I will never wear this dress without this belt for the most part. Or if I wore it without this belt, I would be wearing some sort of other belt that probably would be wider. But this belt was made and designed to go with this dress. So I'm going to do it in this orange. I'm going to do my belt loops. However, if I was doing another dress, like say this one that was mostly black, if I was going to put belt loops in here, this has this color of trim and belt. I might choose to do them in black because they'll disappear if I wear this dress without the belt. Or I could choose them to match this color. So it's kind of up to you. You also can choose to use a heavier duty thread. You can use your basic sewing thread. You at least want it doubled. Or you could get, like, if you were able to get a matching hand sewing thread that was slightly heavier duty, like a quilting thread or a button thread, you could use that too. I'm just going to use my basic matching thread and do a belt loop. Okay. Now you want this, you definitely want to cut a bit extra length in your thread. You still want a workable length. You don't want to like go crazy with your length, but you do want it a bit longer because the daisy chain eats up a lot of thread. So you can't use just like a little short scrap of thread. You got to use like a good sized piece. And you could double this again. You could use 4 threads. I'm just going to use the 2. This belt doesn't take that much abuse. If I was doing bridal loops for a bustle, that I would definitely at least double up my thread. Okay, so now when I'm doing this in a side seam, I'm actually gonna start from the inside, so you can get to see the inside of my dress. I'm gonna find, oops. So I could feel my straight pin is right about here. I'm gonna go through, travel to the other side. Oh. Just as long as I'm pretty close. The first thing I want to do is anchor this. So I like to do like 3 little stitches or 2 stitches. I'm going to do 2, I think. 2 little stitches to create an anchor that goes through kind of all of the layers there. Then I'm going to pull through. Now I'm going to keep this loop a loop, and I'm going to reach through it. I'm going to grab my thread, and then I'm going to tighten it down. I'm not going to tighten it all the way down, although you can sometimes with your first one if you want. I'm going to just continue to do this process. You don't want to tighten them too much because you want to be building your chain stitch. I personally don't like them when they're too loose though. If they're really big and loose, I feel like they break really easily. And you see how I am slowly gaining distance there? And I'm just holding on to this. This is the end with my needle. Just holding on to that. Just to help keep tension. Just see how big we've already gotten it. You're just reaching through, grabbing this other thread. Reaching through the loop, grabbing the other thread, okay? Then once we get to about the length that we need it to be. I don't want it, you don't want it to be too small. You don't want it to pull like that. You know, you wouldn't want to stop there and then have it like tight. You want it to be loose. So I actually want to do about 3 more of these, I think. 1, 2, 3. So it comes a little bit past. So that way, when I actually line it up, it's going to be, so now it's coming, you see it's coming just a little bit past. So there's the end, there's my needle, or my pin. So if I put it right there, it's going to be a little loose. It's not going to be super loose, but it's going to have some movement room in it, okay? That's going to give room for the thickness of the belt. And that's going to allow for it to like slide in and out easily and whatnot. So, come back here. All right. So now I'm going to put the needle through this loop and I'm going to knot this off. So now this won't come undone unless it gets broken somewhere in the middle. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. Whoops. I'm going to come in, I'm going to take a small bite of my fabric right next to my pin. Now I like to try to go back through one of the last knots of this, which can be a little hard. I don't know if you can see, but I went back through one of the last little loops to help secure it, to lock it down. And I'm going to take another little bite of fabric and go through it one more time. And this is just my personal preference. I think that they hold better. Some people don't do that. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to tie this off on the inside of my dress. Take a bite of fabric. Loop, loop. Right. If you're good, you will hide your... Let's be good and hide my tail between the layers. Come on. Oh. So yeah, I just hid my tail like in the seam allowance basically, so it's inside. So it's not hanging out inside, it's not poking out outside. And now we have a nice belt loop. I will repeat that process on the other side. Here, let's see. The belt has plenty of room to wiggle around inside and hold it in place, but it will stay right where you want it. So. And I could have done this in black, and it would be perfectly fine. There is no right or wrong. It's your personal preference. I just know that I only wear this belt with this dress, so orange is fine for me. Alright, so I thought I might as well show you a swing tack on like a lining to a dress, okay? So like for the hem. I just want to double check. In this particular case, you want to make sure you know like how far up the lining ends up sitting from the bottom. So this is close enough. Because you don't want to accidentally make your swing tack too short. But when you're swing tacking lining a dress lining to a, or a skirt lining or whatever, it's it doesn't have to be quite as strong as when you're doing the belt loop. I think the belt loop is the place where I like to really make my belt loops, and when I'm doing it as a button loop. I like to make them really strong. Here, it's a little bit easier. So I'm just going to go on the inside about the height of the lining, and I'm going to go through the seam allowance. I'm not nothing is going to be sewn on the outside of this at all. Again, I'm going to anchor it with a couple little stitches to start. Now this one in particular, I really don't care about it being super tight. So these I usually will do like on a looser, because this I'm just looking to traverse maybe about an 1.5 to 2 inches of space. Kind of depends on the fullness of the skirt. And I don't feel like these usually need to be too sturdy. So see, I'm doing it much bigger, like their loops are much loopier and bigger and faster. Couple places where you can use swing tacks besides. Now towards the end I do get a few tighter ones, just because it's better off for the swing tacks. Places that you can use a swing tack besides a skirt layer would be the lining of a coat. I have used this to hold cuffs in place, like in making like very large cuffed jackets for, you know, 17th, 18th century period piece dramas or whatever that have giant, you know, pirate cuffs, like pirate coat type things. You can use this to like tack those cuffs up. You can also use it to hold lapels. Like if you have a costume that has a really big lapel and the lapel keeps flapping around, you could put a swing tack between the back of the lapel and the coat to hold it in place. There's a lot of different little things that you can use this for. It's just really nice to hold anything together. If you still want movement, like if you don't want it like attached like that, but if you still want movement between the two pieces, but to hold things so that they don't get floppy and out of place. So I just went through the very end. You can go through at any point, like you could go through the seam allowance. I just usually connect it to the bottom. There might be a specific way that's really technically correct, but I just connect it to the bottom. Stitch through a couple times. I usually will grab some of the knots at least one of those times. And then, oh, that was a weird tie off. Don't tie off like that. That was weird. Make my little knot. Don't catch that needle. Pin. And again, you should always slide your needle in somewhere and hide your tail. And that is a swing tack between layers of a skirt or a dress, between the lining and the fashion fabric. Well, I hope that was a helpful little tutorial on doing a swing tack, chain stitch, belt loops, you know, that sort of thing. There's a lot of different applications for it besides just using it for belt loops or the hem, like the layers on a dress or skirt or coat. It's a useful little trick to add to your repertoire of hand sewing techniques. And like I said, it's also really great for making a quick little button. You just, after you, at the point that you started the stitch, you know, you just come back and tack it off right there again, and you've got a little button loop. So it makes it really easy. Anyways, I hope that you all are having a wonderful week. I love you all, and see you soon. Bye. All right.